we're so stinking resilient. It's like, because just think about it. In South Louisiana, who in the world picks a swamp to live in?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Louisiana NOW podcast. I am your host, Todd Rossnagel. It's great to have everyone along with us. That voice you heard off the top of today's episode is the Reverend Sam Hubbard, the next Associate Director of Congregational Development and Transformation for the Louisiana Conference. Hubbard currently serves as the campus minister of the Wesley Foundation at Southeastern Louisiana University. And we've heard from Hubbard before on the Louisiana NOW podcast as we focused on serving meals in the early days of the pandemic. But in this episode, we're going to dig a little deeper on Hubbard himself, hoping you can get to know one of the people who will help transform ministry inside Louisiana. Hubbard knows a lot about transformation. His story itself is one of transformation, as he was once an atheist. How did he become who he is today? How can his past help all of us inside the conference move forward? We will discuss all of that and more in today's episode, but we begin with his background, the background that led to the transformation.
I was raised aware of the church, but definitely not in it. Really the main church in my hometown was a Catholic church, and we were how would you say, Christians? That's what I like to say. We went on Easter and Christmas, but that was really pretty much it. And I did probably my biggest involvement with my two biggest involvements involved a VBS to this very charismatic church that I was not comfortable with at all. Just imagine it was a bus with a boa constrictor on it. I'll just leave it at that. And then that was my one experience. And then my other main experience was I went through catechism in the Catholic Church. And so my two main experiences were, these people are absolutely bizarre. And the second one was, these guys don't like questions. And that's really, it was really my catechism. And I remember I was sitting talking to the priest doing my first confession, which turns out to be my only confession. But he was asking me what sins I committed, and I was like, dude, I'm 12. I was like, I don't know. My sister, I hate her, and but she deserves it. And he just kept going, and I was just like, and then even in my uneducatedness, I remember he kept pressing me. And I said, wait a minute, why do I have to tell you this? I thought I could talk to Jesus directly. And you know what's sad is, well, not sad. It was just interesting as I look back at it now. They confirm me, even though I openly said, I don't believe any of this. And it just that really was the start for me of just went from, not educated to being tense about it to really being against it. And, because in my teenage years, I read an absolute insane amount of stuff and always have. And so I started studying other religions and just religion in general. And I remember it just as much as I hate to say it, it's that quote, it's like the opium for the masses. It was just, what is this? This is just all ways to make people feel better about the, weirdness of life. And so I really just started pressing against any kind of faith whatsoever, because I just saw it as a crutch for people who are weak. And I would say I was definitely in my later teenage years and most of my 20s and at least a good bit of my 30s, at least the first half, I would just outright attack people, and I was really, really good at it. Because and I distinctly remember that I hung my hat on this, that I had disassembled this Christian girl who said something. I disassembled her entire faith in 20 minutes in front of everybody. And I was like, and I look back at it now, and I wish I could see her again, but that's where I was at. And I had no interest in Christianity whatsoever, or faith in general. But that changed eventually.
Well, and I hope that as people are listening to this podcast, that they don't exit now, because the good news is to come, and that is obviously that you found Jesus. Tell us perhaps what changed, Sam. This will probably bleed through into why I am the way I am. I never came to faith in a church. I came to faith in Jesus through people. And the primary one, and it's what are they? It's almost like a Franciscan saying that creation is God's first Bible, and it was creation that actually first made me start question my atheism, and it was my son's birth. And I just remember he was born, and I was, if people can't do the math yet, I'm 45 and I have a 26-year-old son. So I had a son very, very young. And I remember holding him, and I realize now, that this was the first time I truly ever loved anybody. And I just barely met this cat, and he wasn't exactly attractive or useful at all. And, but I was holding him, and man, he was like a whole 10 minutes old, and I was like, man, I'd die for this dude. And I realized I loved him. And that's when I started to really think. I was just like, cause I labored under this, this was a random cosmic accident. And I was just like, why? He's not an accident. I mean, he was in a way, but he wasn't, this guy's not an accident. And that really hung on to me, just watching him grow and change, and me be a father, and that love I felt for him, and the sacrifices you make, for your kids and for people you love. And then eventually I met my wife, Dana, and she was another person that she was a Christian all of her life. And but she wasn't overt about it in the sense of, just the Christianese and the, reading the Bible and going to church. She just had this thing where, she just loved people all over the place. And I just remember we would get in these debates. Well, not really debates, because she didn't fight me. She just went and did it. But she would like want to go help somebody. I'm like, why are you helping that person? They don't, whatever, let them do their own thing, do us. And, but she would go help people. She did teach Sunday school, and she never pushed me to go to church. She never pushed me to follow Jesus. But it was through those years of her just consistently being, not talking, but being a follower of Jesus, that really started to change me, and realize that maybe this whole following Jesus thing is a lot more complicated, or a lot more, how do we say, a lot different than I thought it was. And she was the gospel in living color, and in life, fully illustrated and acted out, correct? Or as we would say in the theological world, incarnated. Yes, that's right. That's right. Yes. She was, and she still is this day. I mean, you have to be a holy person to be married to me. I tell you that. But and she is suffering. But anyways. But then ultimately, the final thing that pushed the button was I was engaged in a church by that time, and that's a whole other story. But then I got, I wish we had a billion hours to talk about this, but then I had a nudge of the Holy Spirit to what I didn't know then, I know now, was a nudge of the Holy Spirit to participate in Cairo's prison ministry, and not to bake the cookies, but to go in
and minister to these gentlemen. And this is me fully aware that I'm an atheist. And I was just like, what? No, I don't even believe this stuff. I mean, it's a nice social construct. I'll give you that. It's a good way to teach people morality. But that's about it. And I would even say that Jesus was historically true at that time. But man, I tell you what, I went in and through the team trainings, which I met 42 different Jesuses, if you know what I'm saying, on the team, and then you go inside and you meet 42 new Jesuses, and so I get surrounded by 84 Jesuses, and I'm just like, you know what? Something's going on here.
The Holy Spirit literally drips from the ceiling inside a prison.
Oh yeah, more ways than one. It wasn't air conditioned in the place we were at, so. but I just remember it was on one of the last days. It was the last day, and everybody's coming up, and if anybody's ever done it, they know people come up and they give share their experiences, and I just remember one particular cat. He got up there, and I looked at him and I said, that dude looks different. And I'm talking not like spiritually. I was like, that dude is different. And because I knew what he looked like when he came in, and I see what he looks like now, and it's different. And I just remember all I said was, I want that. I want that. And, because I had a lot of junk, just like everybody else. And I just remember I came back to my house when it was all over, and I sat by myself, and this is what I managed to say in my atheist mind. I was like, the only way I'm ever going to believe, the only way I'm ever going to prove that Jesus is not real is if I lived like he was. And so that's what started it. And whoops, it kind of backfired, or it worked out great, actually. But that's kind of the very short version of how I came to where I am now.
We are back with more, and our guest, the Reverend Sam Hubbard, in just a moment. But first, a word from our sponsor, the United Methodist Foundation of Louisiana. Ever since the pandemic, many people are giving thought to their estate planning. Well, the foundation has a free 5-week seminar by mail that is available by request. Each lesson in the United Methodist Foundation of Louisiana's free estate planning course is written by a Louisiana tax and estate planning attorney and offers information specific to our unique state. When you complete the course, you'll receive a free booklet, Protecting Your Legacy, a guide to planning your will and your trust. It's all free. Start creating your legacy today. You can find out more information by heading to their website, umf.org. Back now to our interview with Reverend Sam Hubbard, the next Associate Director of Congregational Development and Transformation for the Louisiana Conference. As you heard earlier, Hubbard was not a Christian early on in his life, which means he has not always been a pastor. His background prior to his call to the ministry was one of sales. It's a sales life that he says brought about a persistence that forced him to be creative and practical. It's a background that he says has prepared him for such a time as this.
I was built for this. I really was. And in fact, I love being a local pastor. In fact, that was one of the things that I insisted upon, was that, I would love to do this job, but I just cannot get away from practical ministry. I have to have my feet on the ground in the front lines doing things because things are changing so rapidly. And, I have to know way more than just what's in this theoretical realm. I have to know what's practical. But the whole reason I felt called as an elder is to help the church move forward in this dramatically changing landscape that we're in, and to connect to people that that we're just not connecting to. I mean, I think the most recent, and this is tough to hear, and but this is the most recent from Barna, that really of the people who identify as Christians, only 25% are actually committed followers. And you know what committed follower translates into now? You go to church once a month. That's it. And I was like, holy Moses. But see, it's okay. This is once again something I learned from the business world. You could look at that and say, "Oh my gosh, we're here. We are. We're only at 25%, and even that's a weak 25%." But the sales guy in me, which is I can't say that, but maybe the pastor in me, the evangelist in me, goes, "That means we have a 75% uncapped market." That means there's 75% of what is that? 300 million people that they're dying to hear that we have the potential to talk to Jesus about, to introduce Jesus to.
You recently posted that disruption doesn't necessarily cause things, but rather speeds up what is already happening.
Yes.
And you linked to an article that kind of talked about the top 7 disruptions that the church can no longer really avoid, but have to embrace. And one of those was agility will become one of your most valuable leadership qualities.
Yeah.
What do you think agility means as we move forward?
I think sometimes people think like agility. Agility is such like a physical word, don't you think? Right. It's like you picture somebody who's just this super duper in shape person that can do all of these things, and I guess in our world, a person that is like ultra smart and has high energy and has all these things. And I don't think so. I think for us, and really I think maybe a better word for agility is flexibility or openness, and which really means anybody can be agile. Anybody can be flexible. Is really you have to be open to what is going on around you, and that's probably one of my biggest prayers. In fact, if you're ever going to hear me pray, I don't want to be formulaic, but I mean I always pray for myself and for anybody I'm talking to, for the Spirit to give us eyes to see and ears to hear and hearts that are open and willing to change and follow what the Spirit is leading us to do. And that's really what agility means to me. Is like we get so stuck sometimes in and you've heard it a billion times, the method of what we're doing, and this is the way we're supposed to do it, that we totally lose the mission in it all, that we totally lose what we're trying to do. And I know it's going to be tough for us sometimes, because it gets difficult in holding on to, okay, well, what do we need to hold on to, and what do we need to, hold on to with an open hand? And there's this really good analogy I heard recently that it says that it seems to me, and seems to the person who said this, that the church, capital C church, has fashioned itself like a coconut, where it's hard on the outside, and it's almost impenetrable to get in. But once you get inside, it's all soft and gushy and sweet, and actually we should be built like a peach. We should have this hard, core that is of course a seed, but we should have the soft sweetness on the outside. And so it's that kind of openness, that kind of agility, that kind of flexibility I'm talking about, to say, hey, I got this. We have this message. We have the greatest message of all time, and here's this person in front of me. How can I be flexible? How can I be agile to adapt this message, to not change it? Because you can't change it. In fact, we shouldn't. It's great. But how are we going to make it so that these guys can hear this, that see this, that can actually tangibly experience it? And so I guess that's the agility that I'm talking about.
You mentioned the church, and we We always hear about how the church is dying, and there might be some truth in that. I've actually done a lot of research on this area and find that really what they're talking about is the institution of church, and it's changing, not necessarily dying. But humanity seeking their maker, that will never change. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, no. I always try to make things super simple. I think everybody in all of humanity has asked the two same questions: who is God and who am I? And my experience in ministry so far, dealing with so many people like me, who are never were raised in the church, they're asking the same questions. They're asking the same exact questions, and so really for me, it's been about helping them see that who they're really talking about is Jesus, and because you see that all the time in all the data. There's a spiritual, not religious, and I'm surrounded by people like that at the Wesley, and so what I'm seeing is people absolutely love Jesus, but they're kind of like you're saying, they're kind of pushing away from the institution. So for me, it's about helping them in, once again, being flexible and open and working with their language and their worldview to help them answer that question: who is God and who am I? But then kind of show them how that is revealed through Jesus. Like one story I remember clearly. I mean, I have a lot of them, but this one was very interesting. I was marrying a couple, and the husband was Christian, but the wife was a Wiccan, and of course, I always get the people that are the parents call me, or the people call me as like, hey, we're afraid to go to a real pastor, so we're going to go to you. And I'm like, okay, cool. And but I remember and good enough. One of the things I talk to couples about when I marry them is like, hey, where you guys stand on your faith, because besides money, that is going to be another thing you're going to argue about. So, tell me about your guys' faith. And so they brought up this slight tension between each other about this. And so I asked her, real quick, I was just like, I said, just tell me, I know what Wiccan, the general principles, and the belief structures, but tell me what you believe in. What do you believe? And I swear to you, Todd, this was crazy. She looked at me and goes, well, Sam, I believe in everything that's true. And I was like, okay, what else? And she goes, I believe in everything that's good. And I was like, okay, what else? And she goes, I don't know. I don't know any other word to say it. I mean, I believe in stuff that's holy. And I was like, you believe in Jesus, right? And it just started this huge conversation that we had. And so once again, I'm actually excited about the way things are turning, or it seems to be downturning. But I think, and I think history backs me on this. This is when the church actually gets its power, is in its weakness, is when it's on the ropes. And it seems to be in an unwinnable situation. This is where we start to get the power and be able to live out the gospel and actually introduce it to people.
So, with that being said, if we were to look at it as this is the moment everything is going to change, what are those strengths in Louisiana that we should focus on as we move forward?
Oh yeah, I don't know if anybody has picked up on this, but I'm not from here, but I was born and raised up north. We moved around a lot, but I was born and raised mostly up north. And when I first moved down here, I was like, man, these folks are lazy, and I was like, all they do is eat and have fun, and I was quickly won over by that, by the way. But what I realized. What it really is it's not laziness at all. And this is I guess this is probably mostly for me, but I'm always thinking, if you if you haven't been around me long enough, I'm always thinking ahead. I'm always thinking of the future. My mind's always, forward thinking. And I realize that's great. But I also realize how not present I am, and I would say that's one of the strengths of Louisiana is people are present, like when you you don't talk to, when you're up north, people don't talk to each other in a grocery store. It's like if you talk to somebody in a grocery store, you're crazy, and or you're weird, or you're off your meds or something like that. So, but man, when you like talk to people, they are with you right then and there. They don't care about their groceries, or they don't care about their job. They don't care about anything. They're with you right there. And I've been a lot of different places, and that's something in Louisiana I think that is very unique in that they are a very present people, and also too, something else that has dramatically shaped me is how relational Louisiana is. How familial it is. Once again, I told you I came to Jesus because of people, and I may have only mentioned 2 people, but I can't even begin to list the countless people who not only were graceful to me, but were family to me, that like welcomed this really antagonistic atheist into their life and just loved me through it all. And the other thing I really think about Louisiana, and I know this word gets thrown around so much, but it's true, is I guess I can say we, because I've lived here for 20 years now, but we're so stinking resilient. It's like, because just think about it, in South Louisiana, who in the world picks a swamp to live in? It's like, who does this? And but we do, and it's just with all the stuff that just cries out that we should not live in this area, at all. We still do, and you can throw a hurricane at us, you could throw floods at us, you could throw all kinds of things at us, and we're still going to be here, and we're still going to figure out some weird, bizarre way to get through it, and not only get through it, but be stronger on the other end. So, which is funny, because when you think about that, presence, family, and resilience, that's exactly what the church needs to be right now, is present, be relational, be resilient, be flexible, and so we already have everything we could need to do everything we need to do in the conference and for the church in Louisiana to spread the gospel.
The Reverend Sam Hubbard from soon to be the Congregational Office of Congregational Development and Transformation. Sam, we thank you for your time.
You rock. Thanks, man.
As you heard in today's episode, Sam says he reads a ton. We asked him what he's reading these days, and he included a list of books that we have included in the show notes of this episode. Also included in the show notes, more on the Office of Congregational Development and Transformation, including a series of web videos that they've produced entitled Do Hard Things, Resources to Help Pastors and Congregations During the Pandemic. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on the Louisiana Now podcast. For Mary Burley, our producer, the Foundation, our sponsor, I am Todd Rossnagel, your host. Until next time, may we always remember that in Christ, we are indeed a new creation.